Hi students, today we're going to do the arithmetic of roots, adding, subtracting, and multiplying. Go ahead and start with this warm-up, so simplify these three problems. Pause your screen. Okay, let's go ahead and check our work. So the square root of 50, using the factor tree, the 50 breaks down to 5 times 10. 10 breaks down into 5 times 2, so we circle the ends of that factor tree. So this becomes 5 times 5 times 2. Circling the pair of 5s and bringing one of those to the outside, we get 5 square root 2 as the final answer. Next, the square root of 9/4. We can write it like this. Now we're taking the square root of the numerator divided by the square root of the denominator. The square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of 4 is 2. And lastly, the square root of 200. Let's break down 200 with the factor tree. So we have 20 times 10. 20 is 5 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. 10 is 2 times 5. Circle just the ends of the factor tree. Okay, now let's put all of these numbers underneath the square root sign. So we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. Circling a pair of 2's and a pair of 5's, I get to bring those numbers to the outside. So I have 2 on the outside times 5, and square root of 2 is left here since it doesn't have a pair. You get 10 square root 2 as your final answer. Okay, now let's learn how to add or subtract rational expressions. So it's pretty simple. The first step is to simplify the roots, and the second, determine if the terms could be added or subtracted. If the roots are the same, they can be added or subtracted, but if they're different, they can't be. So looking at example 1. First, notice that square root of 8 and the square root of 2 are different roots. So from the beginning, we are not allowed to subtract these. First, we need these to be the same number. So let's simplify the square root of 8. That simplifies to 2 times 2 times 2. And I still have the second part, 2 square root 2, and I can't simplify anything there. Circling this pair of 2's, I bring that to the outside to join the 3. So 3 times 2 on the outside, square root 2, minus 2 square root 2. Now 3 times 2 is 6. The square root of 2 stays next to it, minus 2 square root 2. This is great. We have the same number underneath the square root sign. You can see it right here. Now we're allowed to subtract. 6 minus 2 is 4. And we leave square root 2 right next to it. Okay, let's look at example 2 to simplify. 3 square root 8. Notice that we just did this part in example 1. So using what we got in the very end of it, we saw that this becomes 3 times the square root of 2 times 2 times 2. This 2 gets to come to the outside and get multiplied by the 3 as we did before. So you get 6 square root 2 as that first part, minus 2 square root 3. Notice here that these are different roots, so we are not allowed to subtract the 6 and the 2 here because the numbers are different. You can leave this as your final answer, and that's as simplified as it can get. Now let's look at multiplying. The square root of 5 times the square root of 10. So what we can do here, if you can, simplify those numbers first. 10 is 5 times 2. So now we're going to write that all underneath one square root sign. So the square root of 5 stays. That can't be broken down. The square root of 10 is 5 times 2. I see a pair of 5, so I get to bring that out, and you get 5 square root 2 as the final answer. Let's do the same thing for example 4. So we're going to break down 2 square root 4. So this becomes 2 square root 2 times 2. I see a pair and it comes out, so that becomes 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Now looking at the second part, 3 square root 20. So let's break down 20. That's 4 times 5. And 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. So we have 3 square root 2 times 2 times 5. Let's simplify. So a pair of 2's get to come out. So that becomes 3 times 2. And we still have square root 5. 3 times 2 is 6. And we still have square root 5 next to it. Now don't forget we're multiplying. So let's bring down this multiplication symbol here too. Just multiply these numbers on the outside. 4 times 6, that's 24. And square root 5 just stays next to it. There's nothing to multiply the square root of 5 with. And this is our final answer. Okay, you guys go ahead and try these 3 problems, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.